and welcome to Woodbridge, the best town around. My name is John McCormick. I'm the mayor of this great town, and we're here tonight to celebrate Black History Month in Woodbridge Township. Joining me to my left is our Assemblyman Craig Coughlin, currently the Assembly Speaker. To my right, we have 6 members of the Town Council. Far right, Brian Small, Councilman at Large. To his left, Howie Bauer, 2nd Ward, Fort Soap on Casey. To his left, Debbie Meehan, Councilwoman from 5th Ward of Colonia. To her left, Lisbeth DeJesus, Councilwoman at Large. To her left, Sharon McAuliffe, 1st Ward Councilwoman, Woodbridge proper and Seawarren. To her left, Councilman at Large Greg Ficarra. To the far right, Councilman at Large Kyle Anderson. To our left, we have 3 members of our Human Rights Commission. To the closest to us is the President, Glenn Morgan. Next to him is the Vice President and former Councilwoman Patricia Osborne. And to her left is Denise Anderson. So I'd like to call up Mr. Morgan and present him with this proclamation. Whereas the United States Congress has designated February as National Black History Month to recognize the contributions and accomplishments of the black community that they have made to our nation, and whereas the black community, regardless of gender, religion, socioeconomic status, or class, have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas Woodbridge Township is home to many trailblazing black community leaders, including Mr. Morgan himself, who inspire and change our community for the better, and whereas each year a special theme is proclaimed with the 2023 Black History Month theme as Black Resistance, a theme that pays homage to those who have resisted historic and ongoing oppressions. Now, therefore, I, John McCormick, Mayor of the Township of Woodbridge, in concert with the Township Council, do hereby officially recognize the month of February in the year 2023 to be National Black History Month throughout Woodbridge Township. So, congratulations, Mr. Morgan. Thank you. So just a quick story. Back in, I guess it was the spring or a little bit later, maybe the summer of 2020, it was a tough time in the country. It was a tough time in the state. It was a tough time in Woodbridge. We were looking at ways to deal with issues that were coming up. And Carol Ehrlich, my chief of staff, actually remembered and then found that we had on the books a Human Rights Commission that had not been active since about the 70s. So we talked about revitalizing it. And the first guy we thought about that could be a community leader to run the Human Rights Commission was Glenn Morgan. Unbeknownst to us at the time, none of us were, we were around, but we weren't involved in government. Glenn's mother was actually the last leader of the Human Rights Commission before it kind of went out of business. And it was an amazing coincidence so that when Glenn took this over, it just was a natural continuity, if you will, of his family's involvement in the community. And then we put Pat Osborne, who was a former councilwoman from, I'm guessing, Pat, 1996 through about 2010. So a long time. It's a long time. All right? I'm not that good with numbers. I go by 1 year. Give me a break. So Pat joined it as the vice chair. Gary White joined it, who has since moved out to Las Vegas, but he maintains a connection to everybody here. And several others have been on the committee, and I think we have 1 vacancy we're just filling tonight, I think. So it's been a very good resource for the town. Glenn has had so many meetings over in the Independent Club of Colonia, which is kind of his home base. He lives right near there. Oh, not anymore. Grew up near there. And this group has been invaluable to us as community leaders as we deal with issues where we need some help and some advice. So I want to thank Glenn, Denise, and Pat, and all the members of the HRC. And Glenn, can you say a few words, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Thank you for the proclamation.
Hold it.
Yeah.
All right.
And I just know that my parents are looking down on me and enjoying, what's taking place here. I try not to get too emotional, but it's kind of tough sometimes. But to have this as a, first time raising of the flag here in this township is huge. And I want to thank you for being part of that.
You've been pushing.
Okay.
You're the driving force tonight.
It's something I obviously will happen annually, and I look forward to it. It's all about inclusion, bringing people together from all different ethnicities, cultures. And that's what the Human Rights Commission is about, and this is what we're trying to make sure this township is about as well. So I can't thank you enough. We'll be raising the flag today. If you notice, the colors are green, black, red. And just to give you a little bit of a significance behind that, those colors have a meaning. And the red represents the blood, okay, that so many of our ancestors have gone through and lost as well. The black stripe is a nod to the black people and their skin color, even though we have different shades, okay? The green represents the fertility of the African continent itself. The combination of these three colors represents the spirit of Black Americans, a dynamic people who are creating a community, a space to call their own, and a society free of oppression. So those are the few words that I have to say. And thank you, and thank everybody.
Thank you, I would like to introduce Dr. Reshma Ali, a member of our Human Rights Commission who just joined us. Thank you, Doctor. And I'd like to ask our colleague in public service, Craig Coughlin, if he would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for putting together this flag-raising ceremony. Thank you to the members of the Human Relations Commission. Thank you to all of you who came out on a chilly night to raise a flag. And this gives us the opportunity, gives us a chance to do a few things, to remember, to be reminded, and to celebrate. Let's remember the struggles which this flag represents of the ancestors of the people who are here, and the struggles that they faced over decades, centuries ago. We also should be reminded tonight that as much progress we have made, racism is still real in this nation. And we need to come together as a community and as a nation to fight that, to change that, because together we can and we will. And let's also let's not forget, it's appalling that across the country, people are talking about Black history and trying to diminish it. Black history is American history. And we should be reminded of that. It's a chance for us to do just that tonight. It's also a chance for us to celebrate the contributions that Black people have made across the centuries in arts, in literature, in science, and all the things which often go unnoted. So today, let's do all of those things. As a community, I'm proud to live here. I'm proud to live in a diverse community that respects and understands the importance of something like the flag raising for the Pan-African flag. So thank you all for coming out, all of you trailblazers, all of you game changers, all of you who make a difference in the community. It's a privilege to be with you today, and I look forward to celebrating the flag raising in just a few minutes. Thank you.
We're also joined by Don Green from the Human Rights Commission. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the fact that, and Mr. Coughlin mentioned something about inventions and our contributions as African Americans to this country. My wife and I put together a beautiful display out front here in the lobby in reference to the inventions and what we as African Americans have contributed to this country, not only to the country, but to the world. And that display is out front. He'll be here for the whole month. And I just want to thank my wife, Clara. Clara, stand up, please. So they'll help me put that whole thing together, and we'll feel free, check it out, get educated. Okay, thank you.
It does look great, and just today I said to Kelly and Megan that we should go down there and take pictures of it and get it out on social media. They already did. That's how good they are. They took care of that. It is a beautiful display, so thank you for that, Clara. Thank you. So the five of you figure out who's going to hold what section of the flag, but I would like you to be the ones that actually raise the flag outside in 2 or 3 minutes, so let's go out. And if I could, I had a slight oversight. I did forget to introduce our Middlesex County Commissioner from Woodbridge Township, former Councilman Charlie Kenny.
started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could please remain standing, if we could keep in our hearts and our minds the following people: Councilwoman Eunice Stumfor from Sayreville, the family of Tyree Nichols, former Councilman Jim Cow's wife. He and his wife Mary lost their son, so if we can keep them in mind. And certainly the folks over in Turkey and Syria dealing with the terrible tragedy there. Thank you.
Notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law have been satisfied concerning this meeting. The Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger published the notice on November 25th, 2022. It's also posted on the municipal bulletin board and should be so noted in the minutes of this meeting. Councilman Bauer. Here. Councilwoman De Jesus.
Here.
Councilwoman McCullough.
Here.
Councilwoman Meehan.
Here.
Councilman Patel.
Here.
Councilman Small.
Here.
Councilman Spiller.
Here.
Vice President Anderson.
Here.
And President Ficarra.
Here. Council folks, just real quick, Mr. Mitch, if I can. I know some of us went to the wait, some of us would like to go to the viewing, so if we can hold our agendas as best as possible, I'd appreciate it. Just want to get that out there early, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from January 24th, 2023?
Motion? Second.
Any questions or comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Beginning with second reading ordinances this evening, starting with letter A, which is a bond ordinance to acquire various easements for the relocation of fiber optic cables for the Main Street Route 9 project. Could I get a motion that this ordinance be taken up on second and third reading and the public hearing be open?
Motion? Second.
Any comments or questions from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The public hearing is now open on letter A only.
Good evening, John Vatari, Woodbridge. A lot of people are curious on the project at Main Street, the Route 109 over there, Route 9. How long is it going to take the job to be completed? Because, I mean, it's early start. I think we're lucky it's a mild winter. But approximately people are kind of desperate because of traffic jam. How long actually would take to get it completed? I mean, general park, you know.
I'm going to run with this question, even though it's not related necessarily to the fiber optics, which this ordinance is, but I think, to my understanding, it was our hope to have it done before the winter. Is that accurate?
I can say that's a hope, but I won't predict when it will be done.
Right, that's a hope. Try to keep your questions specific to this
Well,
particular...
specific, it says over here, not just the fiber optic, it says other jobs, so it's not just fiber optics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments for letter A? Letter A only? Hearing no other comments, can I get a motion that the public comment hearing be closed, the ordinance be adopted and submitted to the mayor for approval as required by law?
Make a motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Letter B is an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Police Regulations of the General Code, and this is with regards to the age of sale for tobacco. And again, I just want to point out, this is nothing more than a housekeeping amendment to the ordinance. It doesn't change anything other than the age, so we're in compliance with state law. With that said, can I get a motion that this ordinance be taken up on second and third reading and the public hearing be open?
Motion. Second.
Any questions or comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The public hearing is now open for letter B only. Hearing no comment on letter B, can I get a motion that the public hearing be closed, the ordinance be adopted and submitted to the mayor for approval as required by law?
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Letter C is an ordinance of the Township of Woodbridge granting the application for a long-term tax exemption for the Woodmont Metro Park property. I get a motion that this ordinance be taken up on second and third reading and the public hearing be open.
Motion. Second.
Any questions or comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The public hearing is now open on letter C only.
Hello, hello, hello. You hear me? Okay. Scott Gorich, Woodbridge proper. So appreciate the chance to speak on the ordinance. Before that, I just want to thank Mr. John Mitch for being very responsive to all my requests and emails. I know I've been quite obnoxious about it, and you've fulfilled all of them. And I'm glad you brought up about the councilwoman. I just want to recognize the recent violence against the councilwoman in Sayreville, and it doesn't appear to be related to anything political, but I just want to say that in general, despite disagreements from the public and the council people, that there is never under any circumstances any excuse for violence, threats, intimidation, despite what could be vehement disagreements. So I support you guys and what you guys have to deal with, and it's just an awful tragedy, and I'm glad you guys recognize it, so I appreciate that. So my goal here is to delve a little deeper into the specifics of the ordinance, because again, I've spoke here many times about the shortcomings of 30-year pilots. Why am I here? Again, just to remind, now that we have a pretty good audience here, which is nice, I am absolutely pro-development. Bring it on. I want to reiterate, I'm very excited about all the developments going on. I am registered unaffiliated, I am not politically motivated, and I am not running for any offices now or ever. I am not even against the use of the pilots. Let me be very clear on that. I am against the misuse or abuse of pilots for residential developments, of which this ordinance is very clearly one. Pilots such as this can and will have serious negative effects on the tax burden of property owners down the road. I have read all the hundreds of pages of the documents relating to this development, especially the financials, and I will have very specific questions for these 9, not the administration. I will have separate questions for that I would like to hear the council opine on before they vote to justify their assumed approval of this ordinance. Here's what I'm going to cover. It's basically 5 parts. Number 1, the justification for a 30-year pilot on a residential development. The specific financial and economic justifications behind approving this deal. Second, the effect on school funding as it relates to the rateable taxpayer and the growth of student numbers. Sub-question to that about the cycle of state aid and how that works. The economics, number 3, of different lengths for pilots versus it being a rateable, and what is the most appropriate balance. Number 4, pilots' effects when the town eventually endures a reval. And lastly, instances where the administration recently pulled a proposed development at Ross Street, which was a great turn of events, showing that you can input new information and make decisions and pivot and go in a different direction. So let's get started. Justification for approving 30-year pilots on a residential building. I will ask the council, and none of these questions are meant to be confrontational. They are direct, okay? We'll keep it calm. We'll keep it conversational. What do you cite as the justification for approving 30 years of tax breaks for this residential building? Also, how is that cited within the documents? What is the justification listed for that?
Well, if you're asking me, I think it's pretty clear in the ordinance that right now, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but right now, I believe that property is generating less than $150,000 to the tax rate.
That's right.
And when the pilot starts, it quickly goes up to over $900,000.
100%. I ran a pro forma. I have all the financials. No one's arguing why we don't need a development that generates more tax as a total. I am asking for the justification for 30 years of a pilot relative to a 5, 10, 15, 20, 25-year pilot. I want to understand, and I have the pro forma here. I ran a pro forma with a rateable, what the total taxes to the city, the schools, and otherwise, and I would have sent it to you, but I'd finished this right before I got here because this takes a long time. I want to understand the justification for 30 years and the effect that's going to have on the rateable taxpayer from a school aid standpoint.
Well, I think I was trying to explain that. I think that the money is coming in, and I don't see the effect that it's going to have on the schools. We have a proven history of working with the schools and providing services, providing facilities that allows them to spend their money the way that it should be spent on teaching and on curriculum. And as long as we've been doing this, we've been working hand in hand with education, and we have no one from the Board of Education has felt that they've been shorthanded in any way.
Because
and
that,
to answer your question about 30 years versus 25, I simply think it's a matter of knowing what the document is over 30 years. It's not going to change. It's 30 years. Just like we would my 30-year mortgage in my house. I don't know what mortgage you have in your house, but I like to know what I can expect over the life of that mortgage.
Now, the thing is though, that would be okay if that was a level payment equal over 30 years, but the specific pilot has an increasing schedule based on gross revenues. And based on a pro forma, so in the pilot document, it states to enhance the economic viability of this project, we need 30 years. So I would like to understand the justification, because when I ran a pro forma on what this building would look like as a rateable, and what the rateable taxes would be, for example, let's just use 15 years as the line. Basically, they're trying to tell us they can't do the project unless they have a pilot. Because what does economically viable mean? I'm not being facetious when I ask these questions. I want to level set the definitions. When they say the project needs to be economically viable, what are they saying?
What I believe they're saying is not that it's not feasible, but they have other options in other places. And when we offer these pilots, the administration does its due diligence, and we feel that there's a benefit to the town. We're not just willy-nilly offering pilots to anyone. We're doing our background check, and we feel that this is worth it, and 30 years is what we've settled on. Our administration does all the financial work, presents it to the council, and so far we've been in support of it.
So if they presented the specific financials, at what year does the development turn net positive on an operating cash stand flow? At what point, and a 30-year pilot so far, when does it turn cash flow positive?
That, haven't done the math on that.
Council President.
So I have. Go ahead.
You have a,
I just have a question, because
Sure.
one of your questions was very vague about the school funding formula.
We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
We'll spend.
Because
We're going to spend a lot of time on that.
Truly want to understand,
We
why
should.
that.
We should. It will have an effect. It has to do with state aid. It has to do with what happens if and when down the road within 30 years. State aid is not a constant. You get some, you lose some. When you lose some, that difference falls onto the rateable taxpayer.
Well, do you know how you lose some?
You grow the city.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
So it's a blessing and a curse.
You lose some when the city starts to decline. So when you
That's not true at all.
Yes,
Jersey City,
it is
we
true.
just went through this in Jersey City.
It is true.
Jersey City has never declined. It has been on a
Oldbridge-
straight
Oldbridge
trajectory
just
up.
Went through it as well.
So, I didn't hear you.
Oldbridge went through it as well.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
and Oldbridge lost school funding because
Right.
their population was declining. They,
But
in
you're
fact,
arguing
had
in
to
favor-
close a school.
but
They, in
you're
fact, had
rebutting
to
someone
close
who
a
is
Blue
against
Ribbon
development.
School because their population was declining.
I understand that,
Okay.
but you're arguing against someone against development. That is not what I am here for.
Scott, you're not being timed on this, you well know.
I know.
So if Councilman Anderson is
Fair
taking a
enough. I
shot
interrupted you.
responding,
You're right.
You're gonna have the floor, he'll
You're
have
right.
the floor, and we're not in a rush.
Fair point. No, you're right. I'm used to the 5-minute clock, so you have to forget the what we're used to, the muscle memory on that.
So
I'm waiting
you
for the
said you'll get
buzzer,
back
that's
to
why.
this, but I mean, we are obviously out of respect of time of
Yeah.
the meeting.
I know.
We don't want to spend, a great deal of time on one issue here. However, when it comes to the school funding formula, it has a lot to do with how your population is growing or declining.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
If after time they feel that your school is being overfunded because the school population is declining, they do reduce your school funding, as we saw in Oldbridge, as I said. And in my first year as county superintendent, we had to go down and unfortunately close a Blue Ribbon School in Cheesequake Elementary in a Title I section of town where there were a lot of transient apartments, people that lived there. Here we have a town that is growing, and thankfully for years Woodbridge was underfunded.
Yeah,
Whereas
we're the
now-
recipient of Jersey City's loss, which is a good thing. The point is though, they're not in perpetuity. These things happen in cycles. And if you sit here and trying to tell me that we will only get additional state aid over 30 years, that's just not going, that's not the reality of it. It just isn't. Jersey City has only steadily, because the mayor wants to run for governor, and he thinks that if I get it on my resume that I'm the bigger city than Newark, they're going to look at me. And it has been pilot until the residents and other folks stepped in and asked them and showed them the reasons why this isn't a smart strategy, which bore out exactly the way we said it would because they did eventually go through a reval, which exacerbates. It's not the only thing that makes pilots a problem, but it exacerbates the effect of pilots on the rateable taxpayer, because you only shuffle the rateable taxpayers to get back to market rate. But when it comes to school funding, Jersey City lost something. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I forgot to bring it. They were up to around a $600, $700 million budget, of which 400 and change was subsidized by the state, and they're pulling 100 and change a year. That equated to an almost $1,000 rise on average to the rateable taxpayer.
And how did
That's
the
an extreme.
residents- How did the residents show Steve Fulop that they disagreed with him? They continue to vote him in every year.
Oh, it's a
Every
joke
term.
because no one's running against him. Did you see the participation rate? It's like 14%. No one's paying attention, just like no one else is paying attention to this, except me. No one understands this stuff, and it's very complicated. I understand this. Half of this place probably falling asleep. Listen to me now.
We are paying attention to it.
You are. Yes, this group is. Thank you. When you look at the financials they provided, they turn a profit in year 5. So, and then they start running big fat profits for the rest of the 30 years. So when you run a pro forma for a 15-year rateable, it just so happens that they turn a profit around, if you do it in 15 years, if you're going to do a 15-year pilot, they still run a profit the whole way through. I have the numbers. I'll gladly send it to you afterward. My hope here is that we table this, we look at this and have a conversation on it, and we look at the numbers, this council, not the administration. I know they have their case. I want this council to answer these questions about the financials, because I have it, and it does not justify a 30-year pilot. I would love to hear a more detailed economic justification for 30 years. Again, I want the buildings. I want the restaurants. I'm a homeowner here. Of course I want it to grow. 30 years makes no sense. And I'll again, if I have to, I'm not going to, but I'll have to. His own words. The 30-year pilots are good for warehouses because they don't add kids to the school system. It's the residential buildings you got to watch out for. That's Mr. McCormick's words. He knows this. Now let me get back to the questions. I'll have very specific questions so we can move on and I don't keep you here too long. Does anyone on the council understand the ownership of the Woodmont entity that is building this property?
What do you mean by ownership?
Who has an ownership stake?
Who has a stake in Woodmont?
It seems like there's, I may have this incorrect, but it seems like there's entities set up for each building that fall under the umbrella of Woodmont Properties. So who is the majority owner of Woodmont Properties? Eric Whitmont, who owns the parent company, 91% ownership. The other 9% isn't disclosed, so I'm going to ask here, this is not an accusation, I just don't know this because I can't find it. Does anyone on this council, in the administration, have a direct or indirect ownership stake as part of that 9% or part of the parent company? I just don't know that.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I just didn't, I
Sounds
couldn't.
like a nice company to invest in now.
Well, it's a private, but still, that plays into why these pilots are so attractive to these developers. Eric Whitmont is a 91% owner of the entity of this development. Through the pilot, he runs extraordinary profits after year 5. What does a company like that do with the profits? It's usually going to pay him a dividend, which is most of that profit. It goes to one person. It's not about the project being economically viable. It's about providing a taxpayer subsidized fat profit for one individual, which I'm not against. I'm a capitalist. I work in M&A. I'm all about that. He's smart. He sees a good deal when he sees it. And we're falling for it. There is no reason this shouldn't be 15 years. No reason. Economically, qualitatively, quantitatively, 15 years is what I would actually call a compromise. Again, I witnessed all this in real time over many years in Jersey City.
Scott, I don't see the comparison between Woodbridge Township and Jersey City.
It's the concepts of the compounding effect economically of the pilots on the taxpayer. The more pilots you issue, pilots pay 95% of the revenue to the city. I get why cities like this. You get to pad the coffers.
Township and Army.
The township, so right, and 5% to the county. Normal taxes, 60% goes to schools. That doesn't mean the schools get more money. It means it gets divided amongst more of us.
I understand.
Right, but I'm making sure everyone, the crowd, we're level setting. I understand that that's not attractive from the city standpoint. That's more money into your coffers. Comparing it to what is there is not the valid comparison. That's a valid comparison to someone who says don't develop there. Bring the buildings. 30 years, there's never... Because in Jersey City, when they finally realized we are significantly compounding the effect on the rateable taxpayer because their budgets went up significantly in the schools, when that happened, they stopped it all together. And guess what happened? The development kept coming because they played hardball. And they only started issuing 5 and 10 years in the most gunshot-ridden parts of Jersey City, parts you would think you need to attract places with 30 years of pilots. They're issuing maybe 5 or 10 years, if at all. They're not even issuing them. Developers keep coming. To your point, I get there's Carteret wants to build buildings. None of them are the gem that this is, with the train station, the restaurants. We are on a momentum. I would even argue, I can't argue against the original 30-year pilot. You got to get the clock started. You got to get the momentum going to Woodbridge. It's here. Did we even negotiate with the developers on anything but 30 years? Did they just fill out an application and we said, sounds good, good building? I'm asking, I don't know.
I said that in the beginning, that the administration vets the people that are coming in and making a determination that the 30-year gives us consistency. We know what we can expect over 30 years. I've given you the figures of the income coming in. See, I think for the general public here, you hear the term pilot. Pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. And people who are against pilots, Scott's not one of them, are against it because they think it's a tax abatement. It's not. The first word in pilot is payment. And it's obvious that the property that we're talking about by the Metro Park right now brings in $535,000 in taxes to the tax base, but only $149,000 of that stays here. The first year that this pilot goes into effect, the township gets $982,000 plus, and it will grow each year after that. And over the 30 years, almost $66 million is coming into the township ratables.
I'm glad you brought that up. So let's examine what the total tax collected were if it were rateable. So I only had the Vermella as a comparison of what was an actual rateable assessment, and I did a pro forma based on the proportion that the Vermella collected $49 million as a 30-year pilot. It's expected on their documents. The Vermella development near Wegmans is going to collect $49 million over 30 years. It was assessed at $2 million, and if I grow that at 2%, which is a fair assumption, it would have collected $81 million in total, if it were a rateable with no pilot, of which the city is going to get, what was it, 25%? I'm forgetting now. Give or take of that, right? In total, though, $81 million in total, 60% of which contributes towards the schools that I don't then have to pay. On a net basis, it is an abatement because we are collecting, it is a discount. So when the 30 years are over under a 30-year pilot, they are paying 40, 50, 60% less in total tax, in total payments relative to if it were a rateable. So let the public be known, they are paying something, but it is at a significant discount to what they would pay had they not gotten the pilot. But say it again?
Coming to us.
I understand that. But you're in charge of determining who gets to pay for the schools. The schools set their budget. So just because you're city council and you pay for fire and police doesn't mean you don't have a responsibility on how the schools are funded. That's the problem here. And I've spoken to Dr. Massimino and Mr. Wolferman about this, so I would anticipate on those monthly meetings this may start to come up. Because what they're concerned about is they're only allowed to raise budgets by 2%. Now, state aid raises that by a whole lot more. Again, a double-edged sword. Where normally the budgets would only be up 2%, it's up 9, 10, 20% because we're a beneficiary. It's a good thing. The problem with that is, though, that when we have these piloted buildings, their main concern is throughout COVID, people pulled some kids from the system. So the offset and the justification that was given by the administration for pilots, broadly speaking, at the breakfast with developers were, these buildings don't have many kids. Thousands of units will produce hundreds of kids at some point. You cannot rely on that variable saying that that's why. Those kids are going to enter the system in addition to what the administration in the schools called COVID babies. A lot of people had babies. We won't see the effect of this for a good 3, 4, 5 years when kids start entering the school system. I know they're going to be exacerbated, but they can only raise the budget by 2%. All those kids that are going to be in the piloted buildings are getting a free ride. They don't pay for the schools because 95% goes to the city, to the township. Over time, that will have a significant compounding effect on the tax raises, because my taxes went up year over year 2.5%, and if municipal is flat, that means less people disproportionately are paying for the schools than aren't. Because if the school rose their budget by 2%, but mine went up 2.5%, you're starting to see it. That's the reality of it. I don't understand the hesitance. So what I'm getting from you, and I say this respectfully, is they said it's a good deal, you're saying yes. And there's a good relationship, and there's a trust, and there's a trust. There's a trust there. I understand that. I get that point. But the economics don't, the justification cited in the pilot documents about it being economically feasible, that is just false and misleading. 15 years, the project will be significantly still economically feasible.
So what my belief is that we're at 30 years for what I explained to you, is that that deal will remain and everybody knows what to expect over 30 years. I still contend that what makes that property attractive and why they're not going down the road is because of what we're offering them and what deal. And the reason why I'm supporting this is not necessarily, although I do support the administration on 99% of what they do, but I like these numbers that I read to you. I feel that they're, certainly they're getting a reduction in taxes, but the money is staying in the township, number one. And number two, when it comes down to the taxpayers and what the school needs to raise their money, we all take our taxes from the same people, the people of the town. So it behooves us, if we get money from these pilots, to work with the Board of Ed to help them to accommodate whatever is needed, not just necessarily the rise in students, because that can come and go. Councilman Anderson can tell you that. Right now, I don't believe our schools are at max. There is room for growth within.
But the administration is concerned about it. The school administration is concerned about next 5 years, 10 years. They are.
Okay, well, I haven't heard that.
I know, and I'm pushing them to raise their voices. Dr. Massimino's relatively new. Some people like that, and they know there's a strong relationship. And to be fair, that is one thing we do significantly better than Jersey City. That, as far as I know, there weren't any shit. And I understand about the shared services agreements. I understand about the debt service, how we pay about $6 million out of the 7.2. These are very positive things that offset some of the effects that I'm talking about. Not all. Not all.
Scott, if I just want to also point out,
Please.
if you do go around, because you said this is such a great opportunity here in Woodbridge, and you're right about that, you don't see these kinds of developments in Carteret. You don't see these kinds of developments in Linden, all right? You're seeing these kinds of developments in Woodbridge because these developers want to come here and they know that they can attract the people that can pay the rent.
100%.
to come
They're
here.
pricey. Well, I saw them. They're starting to look like
They're
Jersey
much
City
nicer
apartments.
than the apartments you're seeing. And
Oh, 100%.
apartments scare people because in 30 years, they're not always going to look the same as when
Not
they
as
were built.
maintained.
These apartments that everyone sees around town, everyone marvels at the Vermilla. This one here, the Avenues at Green, they're all very well put together apartments. They look beautiful, and when you compare them
absolutely.
to the surrounding towns that are building, there is no comparison.
100%. But you're slightly coming at my argument. You're slightly coming to you're responding to someone that is against development. I know
No,
what I get what you're saying on that. But again, I don't think, respectfully, the administration even tries to negotiate it. In other words, I would argue we don't need to convince them. They should convince us. I agree with you. This is a highly you can't ask for a better. Commutes are coming back, train station, train station. You're right saddled in the middle of it. It's finally paying dividends. I'd argue we've reached a point where the momentum is there and you can negotiate 20, 15 years. This is all I'm asking. It is just that. To table this, say no for now, see what they would say. I get it. There's a sunk cost to that. There's the sunk cost fallacy. Well, we wrote this up. We're ready to vote on it. I get momentum in that standpoint. There's nothing much else I have a couple other questions to get through. We'll keep it rolling. I know we're going long. I apologize to the people I know that want to speak. The point is those numbers at a total. So when we're talking, when you say the numbers look good for the city, who is the city? The township. When you say it's a good deal for the township, define that.
The taxpayers,
In what way?
because we're taking a project that would generate peanuts over the next 30 years, and we're bringing in almost $66 million.
But compared to a rateable,
Well, you're assuming that they would come here. That's what the crux of it, Scott.
did we even try? Did we ask? Were those? So I'll defer then, because you're right. You're here to vote on what has been produced. Has the administration even attempted to negotiate less than 30 years, or do you even care about it? Is it even a thought in the mind?
Administration, do you care to?
Basically, because we are unique in what we do with the pilot revenue, which is primarily invested in schools. And the way we do that is because the school went out for 2 referenda in 2017 and 2020. The first one was 57 million, the second one was 87 million, plus we provided about 14 million before that through our own bond ordinances. The board finances those referendum, that total costs with bonds. And they issue 30-year bonds. And that is the magic behind the 30-year pilot. Because when they go to the marketplace and they say, we're presenting you with $150 million worth of bonds that we want to pay back over the next 30 years, the first question is, how are you going to do that? And the answer is, we have an arrangement with the township that will share the pilot revenue that they're receiving over the next 30 years. So there's a direct match between revenues and expenses. And therefore, Wall Street looks at those bonds and say that's a very, very good risk, because they have this agreement and the pilots are guaranteed. You're not relying on all these other factors that could change. And by the way, some of the things that are being said are not correct, because school boards are never hurt by pilots in terms of what they can spend.
I never said that.
School aid has not gone down in my entire career in local and state government in over 30 years. School aid has never gone down. Lawmakers in Trenton fight over who can deliver more school aid. Whatever party you're from, whatever branch of government you're in, whatever house of the legislature you're in, they can't wait to get more money to the schools. Jersey City was not hurt. The decline that they had in state aid was from a program called the Adjustment Fund that was set up after the state made a big change to the funding formula, as we all know. Jersey City was a very big loser. Woodbridge happened to be a very big winner. It had nothing to do with pilots. None of that had anything to do with pilots. We were underfunded by years, whether we had pilots or not. They were overfunded by years, whether they had pilots or not. They then, because of their reduction in regular aid, got a lot of money from this pool that the legislature set up and said, we'll help the towns that were hurt the most and try to get them over the hump and give them some aid and gradually phase it out. For reasons that I don't want to discuss here, but let's say they're political, Jersey City lost a lot of aid through the process in Trenton known as the state budget. That had nothing to do with pilots. Nothing at all. So the bottom line is, pilots provide money outside of the revenue cap. Pilots, if you use the money like we do for debt service and for capital outlay, provide money that can be spent outside of the appropriations cap. The school board gets what they need from us every single year. They run their budget, they pass it as a board, they send it to the state, it gets approved, it's got what they call an amount that could be raised by taxation. They send us that bill, we send the bills out to the town, we collect the money, and we give it to them. The other thing is, that's not being actively portrayed, is that a state aid decrease automatically leads to a tax increase. That is incorrect. The formula is appropriations minus revenues equals amount to be raised by taxation. That's the numerator. The denominator is the tax base, the quotient is the tax rate. So when your revenue from state aid goes down, you have a lot of choices. You can raise other aid, other revenues. You can raise taxes, but only to the extent of the cap. So the third choice is cut the budget. If the state cuts aid by any kind of material amount, the burden of that is not going to be felt primarily by the taxpayers. The burden of that is going to be a devastation to the school budget appropriations and a complete mess in the school system. So there's not a direct relation between lack of sort of cuts in school aid and property taxes. They don't match because one can get cut by more than the other can go up. So the balance of the effect would be felt by the students, by the parents, by the teachers. That's why it'll never happen. It'll never happen. School aid is not going down anytime soon. It's a doomsday scenario. It's not something that we even plan on. But again, back to the question, 30-year bonds, 30-year pilots, that's the match. That's why we're anxious to do 30-year deals, because we go to Wall Street with the board, and we do, and we make the presentations with them because we're the funding source. They look and say, okay, this Board of Ed has it under control. They don't rely on regular property taxes to pay these bonds off. They rely on pilots, which are guaranteed. You can't beat that in a Wall Street deal, and that's why they sell their bonds so cheap, and that's why they have a good credit, and that's why we have such a good credit. We're at AA+. The situation was brought up of Bayonne. Bayonne's an A3. Then there's A2, they're a step above B. Then there's A2, A1, AA3, AA2, AA1. We're at AA1. We're a step away from AAA. Don't ever compare us with towns that don't have the financial strength that we have. Everybody's different, but these towns, and plus they're Abbott, not Bayonne, but Jersey City's an Abbott district. You can't find a school system that's farther apart from Woodbridge than Jersey City. I don't care what Jersey City does. I don't care what Bayonne does. None of that is relevant to Woodbridge. We do what's good for the people of Woodbridge. We do what's good for the residents, the taxpayers, everybody. And these pilots are amazingly popular for us. We have $22 million of revenue in the 2023 budget, separate from the amount that we raise from taxation, completely separate. That's $525 per household that we don't ask them for because the people who pay the pilots pay it. And in 3 years, that's going to be $700 million on $30 million worth of pilots. I'll take all the pilots we can get. That's how good they are for us. 30 years is entirely appropriate. This project, we have sought for a continuum of care project in Woodbridge for years. We love the concept of you're an aging senior and you need to live with help, and you go to a section where you're more mobile and can get out and do things, and then you have some issues health-wise, and you go to a different section, and then you get older still, and you are less mobile, and you go to a different section, and there's a memory loss component of this. This project is terrific for Woodbridge Township. It's terrific for our seniors. We're 100% for it. 30 years makes sense. And I implore you to support the project as the pilot agreement as you have in the past. Thank you, Council.
Council President, if I can just add on to the mayor. Thank you, Mayor. That was very well put. Also, Scott, one thing over the weekend, I had my banquet for my Pop Warner program.
Wait a second, I couldn't hear you said.
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear you said.
I run a Pop Warner program, and I spoke to a lot of the parents there. When I first came on the council in 2011, I have 5 children, so when we would go to Franklin High School, New Brunswick High School, we'd go to all of these different high schools that had these amazing facilities, athletic fields, lights. We had grass fields. If you played football over at Woodbridge High School and it had rained 2 days before, you were ankle deep in mud, all right? We now have 3 high school football field that are turf. We have tracks that are all installed. We have baseball fields that are also turf. We have a performing arts center in the Woodbridge Middle School, and a greenhouse over at Colonia High School. All of these things were done through pilots over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, this has all happened. And prior to that, the 30 years prior to that, we didn't know where the money was going to come from, because it would have then been on the tax burden would have been put on the resident, the taxpayer, to fix up one high school field, to fix up one locker room. We just did Kennedy's locker room over. All 3 high schools have lights. Those types of things were all funded, and now you don't have to pay someone to cut the grass, right? You don't have to seed. You don't have to do, those are things that are not in your formula.
But again, the shared services agreements and the way that the city is able to direct, to be fair, when I spoke to the school administration, it comes from the city. It doesn't matter if it comes from a pilot or wherever. They pay them, then they pay the bank. I understand that. I get that. And that is, again, a massive difference that I recognize between these other cities that use pilots willy-nilly versus what we're doing. But I would argue, so just to correct, so the stuff you said about Jersey and Abbott, 100%. I never said pilots have an effect on how much the school is able to raise. It affects who all is paying for it. The pool of ratables are the only ones. So as the school budgets go up every year, only the ratables see that increase in their taxes. That is unequivocally true. Correct? We all agree with that, right? So if there were somehow loss of state aid, so okay, we'll say that's a tail risk, so let's not incorporate that. But over time, as school budgets go up and the compounding effect of kids going there, the administration has concerns, the school administration has concerns of there being the boost of COVID babies and kids from these piloted buildings going to eventually exacerbate the schools, of which they're going to face budgetary restrictions because of the 2% cap. Pilots don't affect school funding. Yes, they have a budget, it gets approved, they send it to the city, it gets included in the bill. But the more piloted buildings you have, the less you have paying into it, and that will have a compounding effect. Because I heard that supposedly this cycle, municipal taxes are flat, which I would argue is not, that sounds like a victory, but given the amount of piloted money, I would hope we would expect to see relief, because the school taxes are going up. We see that. So I would argue if we're going to issue 30-year pilots, there should be some relief, not just spend every single dollar that comes in. Maybe give some relief to the rateable taxpayer. Then you get less people of me coming up here and doing this.
There was no tax increase in this current.
No, I know that. I'm saying, but there should be relief with the amount of influx we're getting from the pilots. If I don't remember our budget numbers, but if we're at 200 million, it ought to be 190 coming from the taxpayer and 10 more million from the pilots. The tax rate should go down for the municipal portion.
The value of people's homes in our towns, as you know, in a great way are related to the school system and
Sure.
the success of the school system. So it really is a benefit to the taxpayers to make sure that our schools are meeting the needs of the community. And working with the Board of Education and the programs that we have, as far as what we spend and what debt we pay down, that work.
And based on the 22 million, from what, I don't remember the exact number Mr. Wolferman gave me, but in terms of the shared services, I mean, we're netting on that. It's not all lined up that every pilot amount that we get in excess goes to these shared services, that we're netting on that. So it's not all just going to the schools a certain percentage. I mean, we are netting that. Again, why the rateable taxpayers, we'll say it again.
We have the surplus, I'm sorry for stepping in, but Mayor McCormick did mention a 22 million surplus right now. Is that correct?
Right
No, he
now,
just said that's what's coming
close to
from
30.
pilots, he said. I thought that's the
Right now, it's
correct.
actually close to 30. The 22 is the amount we have in this year's budget from pilots.
That's just what's coming into the budget from the pilots. But again, so if we line up, and that's a fair justification, 30-year bond, but as it was also explained to me, the shared services agreement is reliant on Mr. McCormick being in the seat. And that is, and I get it, and I'm going to assume, I'm not saying this as a wishful thing, that you may not be mayor in 30 years. I'm going to just go and guess that. I'm not saying that's what we're looking at. You're youthful, you're going. We at the rate, you may be there. We'll see. We'll see. But if anyone here has ambitions and decides to go in another direction, they could pull that. And I get there'll be a legal battle for that. That is not ironclad. But okay, so let's line up pilots, 30-year pilots with those expenses. And if we're in excess of that, let's go back to 15. There's still not an economic justification unless every pilot issued is lined up with a shared service. And that's, I would actually then probably change my tune on that. But if we are significantly in excess or in excess of what we are dedicating to shared services with the schooling system, there is a significantly stronger economic case from a total amount collected in contribution to the schools and the rateable and the county for a 15-year pilot. The numbers bear it out easily. You could even say 20 just to give the developer a cushion for variability in economies. Because as we could see, things have gotten more volatile in multiple cycles. It's worth considering. I know you guys are going to vote for it. I really wish you have these kind of pro formas before you make this vote, because, to be fair, you don't look at these numbers. You've answered all the questions. If I were to go down the line, would I get very detailed responses from everybody who is actually voting on this and understands what we just went over?
Well, Scott, it's not like we just see each other for the first time on every other Tuesday night. We have the
I understand.
opportunity to have these discussions with the mayor, and you have done a very good job. I'll compliment you on bringing up your opinion on these things. It has forced the council to ask questions and look closely. I can't speak for them, but they're going to vote one way or another. So, I just, while I appreciate the time that you're taking to present this, you're doing it in a very thoughtful and respectful manner. I appreciate that. You've made me ask questions personally, but the answers that I am getting, I am comfortable with. And I feel that, as the mayor has explained, the 30-year matchup with debt and that, but more importantly than that, what I see as a lifelong resident of Woodbridge, some of these properties that we've developed have been, it wasn't too long ago, it was a solar farm up there at the Hess building, and I don't know, I like the way that it looks now. It's contributing to the
I agree with you.
rentals. Our taxes are level. I'm comfortable with it. That's me.
And I know some people here who might agree with what I'm doing don't like the fact that I'm pro-development. I'm trying to strike a balance, obviously, because some people just don't like the
Right,
development.
And I recognize.
I understand that.
People here, we're public servants. We live here. We're like you. We're out in the streets. People aren't afraid to tell us what they like and they don't like.
But the difference is though, the administration gets to sit down with you for periods of time, not just right before you're ready to vote. I don't have that kind of ability because I understand more than 3 people. It needs to be a public meeting, et cetera, et cetera. That is an unfair, disproportionate way to present the ideas. What I'm asking is compromise and balance, and to start considering this, because unfortunately, yes, I am pestering the school boards to start asking more, the school administration to ask more questions about this, to what's going to happen with future growth of students, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to anticipate you guys may get questions on this, and I don't want to rattle that relationship whatsoever because it is strong, and the shared services agreement is a big differentiator. But for this pilot, I'm begging you to please consider saying no, going back and looking at the pro formas for a 15 and 20-year pilot, and then making a decision. All I'm asking is you look at all the angles yourselves with detail before you take these votes. That's what I'm asking for. I had other questions, but I have certainly monopolized this. Thank you very much, guys.
Scott, thank you very much. As I said to you before, whether I personally agree with you or not, I appreciate your style of delivery. I appreciate the homework that you did. I recognize to a certain extent you have your opinion. I believe that the 15 years, the 30 years are more attractive, and we'll see how it goes. But I appreciate you and the style that you present things.
Well, if anybody blame John because he helps me get the information, it's his fault. He's been exceptional in helping me, so just blame John.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other comments from the public this evening on this letter, letter C only?
Yes, good evening, Tom Maris, and I'll try to be very brief. I understand you want to move on because there's other things going on this evening with regards to the Carroll family. I want to thank Scott for his brilliant effort. That was probably one of the best presentations I've heard. I wish he was around here around 10 or 12 years ago to present all of that. And I only have 2 questions as a follow-up to what Scott said, which I totally commend him on his efforts for doing that. Correct me if I'm wrong. The township collects all taxes, whether they be school, fire department, etc. And then when they collect them, they go a certain share back to those specific entities, whether it be the school or the fire department. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The other question is, of the pilot money, and I know there were restrictions, what of the pilot money is the school allowed to spend on education? They can do fields and athletics and many other things, but specifically what goes into education? Or let me reverse that question or flip it another way. What is the township not allowed to pay for as far as the schools are concerned? Those are my 2 points.
First of all, I believe the pilot money does not need to be shared with the school system technically, but if you're running good government, a strong school system is good for the community. So I am not sure of the technicality other than the township has chosen to use the pilot money to assist the board with facilities, as you know, you live here, you've seen all of these things. Services, for example, custodians, well-known, security equipment, that type of thing, which allows the Board of Education to spend their money on curriculum-based, STEM material, and those type of things, the actual delivery of curriculum and the job of teaching.
Okay. Thanks. But they can't spend it on education itself. They can help augment other things, as I said, as you just pointed out as well. They can go to the new soccer fields or football fields or stadiums or something of that nature, which is more peripheral than actually in the school itself. They can't address teacher salaries or administration salaries. It cannot be spent on that or to enhance education directly. It has to be something peripheral outside of it. Is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean of peripheral, but outside of the delivery of curriculum, yes.
Yeah. Thank
Council
you.
President, that's correct. Mr. Maris, it can be used for something that also benefits the community. So if there's facilities that the community has access to, the pilots can be spent in there.
Thank you.
John Watari, Woodbridge. All this long talk before, what I get about the thing, I said many times before, developers would come to Woodbridge without the pilot programs because location of the township. We all know that. It's location, location, locations. But again, you talk about what do you do for schools? You are building the stadiums, you're building the turf, you're building everything for sports. Can a Woodbridge schools compare educationally?
Mr. Pitarch, excuse me, you're not being timed, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm not taking your time away, but I need you to stay specific to this ordinance.
Whether,
You could talk about
it's the ordinance,
philosophy-
pilot program.
Excuse me, I'm talking now. You could talk about the philosophy of pilots in the open session. Right now, we're talking about this bond, this ordinance, which is the Woodmont section over in the Menlo Park Mall, Menlo
Metro Park,
Train
Metro
Station,
Park.
Metro Park. So keep your comments to that, otherwise I'm going to ask you to.
I am against any pilot programs, especially for residential housing. I could see the warehouses, brownfields. I talked to a lot of mayors of different towns. None of those mayors give the pilot programs to any residential apartments, anything like this, only to brownfields. Woodbridge is the only one that does it. Why? You always tell us the benefit you're getting from it, how much it costs you to keep all this stuff. There will be kids there. Stuff that you've done for 30 years, they're not going to be there 30 years from now. What happens to things you have to replace, like a football field, the turfs, and everything like this for the kids' schools? That's what I'm talking about. Like Jim said before, 15 years is plenty. Life expectancy of the pilot.
Ordinance, please. You're talking general about pilots. I want to know about this ordinance. Otherwise, you can come back and talk about it. And by the way, the folks on Wall Street
I'm
disagree with you.
okay,
I know you're a good
very
businessman,
clear.
but
I'm
thinking
against it
people on Wall
ordinance.
Street. Thank you.
Are there any other comments this evening on letter C? Letter C only.
Sure, none of the scouts want to go up on letter C?
Here are no other comments. Can I get a motion? Here are no other comments. Can I get a motion that the public hearing be closed, the ordinance be adopted and submitted to the mayor for approval as required by law?
Motion.
Second.
Council President? Oh, I was just going to move that we do give these scouts a merit badge in pilot program specific, all right? Merit badge in pilots.
On the vote, all in favor?
All in favor of pilot?
Wait a minute, who's running this meeting? Settle down. On the vote, go ahead. Go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I thought you were being funny.
I know.
On the vote? Oh,
No, go ahead.
I had my eyes. Any nays?
no.
Okay. Motion carries.
Gotcha, sorry.
Mr. President, next we'll take letter D, which is an ordinance of the municipal council to authorize the acquisition of purchase of property. And this is also with regards to easements along the Main Street corridor for the Route 9 intersection upgrades. With that said, can I get a motion that this ordinance be taken up on second and third reading and the public hearing be open?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The public hearing is now open on letter D only. Hearing no comment from the public, can I get a motion that the public hearing be closed, the ordinance be adopted and submitted to the mayor for approval as required by law?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. President, we're going to take letters E, F, G, H, and I as consent. These are all Chapter 7 amendments to the general ordinances. The first one is to have a parking prohibition for snow plowing removal purposes on Corregia Avenue. The second is for time parking, 3-hour maximum limit on Marconi Avenue between Oak Tree Road and LaGuardia. The third is a parking restriction up to 4 hours for the new parking lot at 29-31 Marconi Avenue, municipal lot. The next one is handicap parking designated on Clinton Avenue and Ellis Place, and finally handicap parking at Harrow's Gate condominium complex. Can I get a motion that these ordinances be taken up on second and third reading and the public hearing be open?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The public hearing is now open on E, F, G, H, and I. Hearing no comment from the public, can I get a motion that the public hearing be closed, the ordinances be adopted and submitted to the mayor for approval as required by law?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll also take first reading ordinances J, K, and L by consent all at once. Can I get a motion that these ordinances be passed on first reading, published in the Home News Tribune on February 10, 2023, with notice of public hearing to be held on February 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m.?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Finally, Mr. President, resolutions numbers 1 through 29. Can I get a motion to approve 1 through 29 by consent?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, sorry. I'd just like to thank the council for support of resolution number 19. The money there will go to significantly help with improvements for Henry Inman Library, which has been closed since the terrible hurricane of Ida. Most notably, the library will now be ADA compliant and will have flood-proof doors. I know the Colonial community has been patiently waiting for this to come back, so we're hoping with all these improvements, we'll get it back and running, and it'll be available to the residents of Colonia again. So, thank you.
Any other comments from council? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, folks, now we're going to go into the public portion of our meeting this evening. When approaching the microphone in the back, please state your name and what section of the township or state you live in. You will have one-time opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes. All videotaping, there's a little section in the back, must be taken from the rear of the designated area. There'll be no shouting. Please be respectful to each other. Please make sure that there are no signs, and I don't see any in the walkways. The public session allows for up to 5 minutes. The 5-minute time frame includes remarks by the speaker if they ask for any responses or interaction by the council or administration. That's all included. While this is a strict 5-minute time frame, the speakers will be allowed to complete a sentence if time runs out during the mid-sentence. Otherwise, there'll be no extensions or allotments or additional time. When there's 1 minute left, I'll try to give you a little heads up just so you know you can wrap it up. So we'll go right into that right now, and overall, we're just asking you to be kind to each other. Council Vice President Anderson, can you take over for a minute?
Sure.
Any comments from the public this evening?
Good evening again, Tom Maris. Just take a couple of minutes. One, I'm not sure why all the scouts are here, but I'm glad they are. This is a great way for you to all learn about how the government works, the civic responsibility, and what you as future leaders are going to learn how to do, and hopefully will do. It's your town, it's a great town, and I hope you stay very active and continue, and thank you for your scout masters for bringing you here. I wish you'd come more often. Thank you. Couple of things. Last meeting, we discussed the fact that the apartments are no longer going to go on Ross Street, and that's a wonderful thing, I believe. And subsequent to that, I was able to have a meeting with Mayor McCormick and the Chief of Staff, Colonel Early, to discuss what the future development of Ross Street and St. James is going to be. We went over several different things. While we didn't reach a total agreement on it, I found them to be very amicable in opening up discussion and allowing us to talk. It was productive, and I look forward to working with John McCormick, Colonel Early, or anybody else in this administration in other future endeavors that pertain to the development of this township. That's it. That's pretty much it. All you want to add that, again, my condolences to former council member Carol's family. Sad event. And one other thing I do want to add. I noticed my good friend Jimmy Dabrowski is here, and I decided to go before him tonight because I know I'm not going to miss anything if I leave now that he has to say. And that, thank you very much for your time.
Are there any other comments this evening from the public?
Good evening, Council. Jose Cunha, Colonia section of Township. Council, for the last 16 years, I've been coming down here asking for help. Once again, tonight, I'm here asking for help. Last week, we had a rainstorm. Unprecedented, came through. My basement flooded. Now, not only did my basement flood with storm water, it flooded with sewer water. Now, for the last 16 years, I have been asking for help, for me and for my family. Every time it rains, my basement gets flooded with sewer water. Okay? For 16 years, I have entertained engineers, consultants, township employees, and no help. I had a daughter who contracted a rare bone infection that I could not get a culture to see if it was attributed to the sewer water that overflows in front of my home. Last year, we had Hurricane Ida came through. My area town overflooded. One of my neighbors lost their foundation. Their wall collapsed. They were new homeowners. 1 month they had bought that home. Their walls collapsed. New homeowners. Let's say they happened to be in that basement trying to save their home. They would have drowned. Blood would have been on somebody's hand. Here's the sad part, is that I've had representatives call me and tell me they're sorry. Everybody's sorry, but nobody does nothing. What do I tell my mother, who's 81 years old, who lives with me? Excuse me, boys, that you have to hear this. That she has to pee in a bucket because we can't use our bathrooms. I can't shower for 2 days, 3 days sometimes. How about this? Last year during Ida, I went to McDonald's. Guess what was in the bathroom? A junkie shooting up. I feel like a homeless person because I have to go use public bathrooms because the township doesn't see me as a human being to even ask me, Jose, would you like a porta potty in front of your home? Jose, is there something that we can do to help clean your basement of the feces, the blood, and everything else that shows up in my basement? Mr. George Brew has been in my basement. He has seen the precautions I take so my basement doesn't flood every single time. True or not true, George? Okay? Once again, now I hear pilots. Everything goes to the schools. What are you folks doing about appropriating money for the infrastructure of this town? Lots of development. What about the sewers? What about the stormwater? What are you folks doing as my representative? Nothing. Because for 16 years, you've seen me come down here. For 16 years, I've been coming down here asking for help. So tonight, I propose this to you all. Buy me out. Buy my house out. Buy my neighbor's houses out. I'm not only coming down here for my behalf, I'm coming down here for my neighbors also. Because that area of town, let's admit it, is a floodplain. Every time it rains, where does all the water run? Behind my home and in front of my home. And nobody comes to help. I always have to call. I get promises from the township. We're going to go into the creek and we're going to clean that creek. We're going to clean the creek. Nobody ever cleans the creek. I clean the creek. I clean it. Should I have to? No, I shouldn't have to. For 16 years, shame on everyone here, I've been coming to ask for help. And look how I get treated. A health issue. Sewer water. With any of you walk in sewer water? Would you like sewer water in your home? The smell? How would you like to tell your mother, 81 years old, you got to pee in a bucket? Does she deserve that? Is anybody going to tell me they're sorry? Because I don't want to hear sorry anymore. I want to see actions. Mr. Mayor and administration, I seriously ask you to consider buying me and my neighbors' homes out. It's the only fair thing to do. God knows how much money has been spent throughout the years on consultants, engineers. Last year we put a supplementary sewer in, correct? Did nothing. We put backflow preventers in, right, George? Nothing. Let me tell you something. My house has 2 backflow preventers. They can't handle the pressure of sewer water coming into my house. So what am I going to do? When I go on vacation, I got to worry about my basement flooding if it rains. If I go to work at night, I got to worry about my wife calling me, the basement flooded. Then I got to come home now and I got to spend my money to clean my basement. I got to have flood insurance.
Okay, Jose, that's unfortunately 5 minutes, but your point is well taken.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments this evening from the
16
public?
years, Council President. 16 years.
Gotcha, Jose.
A health issue.
I agree. Scott, you trust our clock?
No, I forgot the name of the streets I'm going to ask you about. This one's easy. This is nice. It's a quick, easy one. With all the buildings not on Main, Fulton, and Pearl, I feel like we need a light there. We need a 4-way light. It's very hard to turn left from, I'm forgetting what direction I have this facing.
Right over here.
Yeah, this is a very difficult intersection, and it's only obviously with the new buildings. I mean, I know people complain about the developments because of the traffic, and that 4-way seems like a pretty significant ripe for a traffic study and a 4-way light. That's all I got with the council considering. It's an easy one. Come on, say yes. That's an easy one.
Talk to you about it.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm not. Oh, yes, I'll talk to you offline. I just want to throw it out there. I just thought of it earlier today. That's why. Sorry. Then we'll talk about it. So with the at-larges and you, I'll talk to you about it. Thank you.
Any other comments tonight from the public?
Good evening, Jimmy Dabrowski, Secretary, Perth Amboy Area Branch, NAACP. Our area's oldest and largest civil rights organization would like to share the following call to action. Please join us on Tuesday, February 21st at 5:30 p.m. right here at Woodbridge Town Hall to rally against the plans for yet another polluting power plant in Caseby, the lowest income and least white section of our township. Residents from all over New Jersey are coming together to rally against the Competitive Power Ventures Corporation, CPV, and their plans for another dirty gas plant in Woodbridge. This would be the 3rd fossil fuel plant in Woodbridge Township and the 7th in Middlesex County. This plant would further pollute our air and water, exacerbate the climate crisis, and adversely affect our health and the health of our future generations. Instead of using his authority to reject this polluting project, Governor Murphy and his Department of Environmental Protection are allowing it to proceed without any environmental justice impact statement, and they've even failed to provide proper notice of an upcoming CPV hearing. As this hearing approaches, we are rallying to bring attention to this cause and organize the community against CPV. During the rally, we will also go inside Town Hall to the council meeting to raise our concerns with the Woodbridge Mayor and his Township Council, who sadly voted in favor for this fossil fuel plant. In fact, on the CPV website, Mayor John McCormick was even quoted saying, "CPV has been just a great citizen in Woodbridge, a great partner with the township. We love working with them. I wish they could open up 5 more power plants. I'd let them do it tomorrow because they've been such a great corporate citizen with us and have partnered with us." In the spirit of this year's Black History Month theme, Black Resistance, the Perth Amboy Area Branch NAACP is calling on people of conscience to please join us on February 21st as we resist CPV's plans for yet another fossil fuel power plant in our overburdened environmental justice community. While many are simply about talking the talk during Black History Month, our nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization has always been about walking the walk, consistently standing against injustice. At our 113th National Convention this past summer, the NAACP passed an environmental justice resolution calling for the end of all new fossil fuel exploration, extraction, and infrastructure. The Perth Amboy Area Branch NAACP intends to put that resolution into action on February 21st as we rally for environmental justice. So while it was nice to see a Pan-African flag finally raised for the first time in Woodbridge, we'd like to remind you that the flag is a symbol of Black resistance. And if you're truly about Black resistance, you'll stand with our nation's oldest and largest Black resistance organization as we resist this proposed environmental injustice. Or you could stand with the Competitive Power Ventures Corporation and their buddy Mayor John McCormick, who callously refuses to affirm that Black Lives Matter, even going so far as to call our nation's largest Black resistance movement, quote unquote, awful. The NAACP Image Awards, which was created as a form of Black resistance to white-centered award shows, will take place on February 25th. And activist poet Amanda Gorman is nominated for the Outstanding Guest Performance category for her appearance on Sesame Street. In the episode, Amanda shows Bert and Ernie how we can use our voices to express our feelings and support one another, especially when we do it together. She and Gabrielle also helped Grover learn how to be an upstander instead of a bystander, and how we must stand up and use our voice when something isn't right. Building a third fossil fuel power plant in our overburdened environmental justice community simply isn't right. That's why 12 surrounding municipalities thus far have formally stood against the proposed project, including Perth Amboy, where I'm a proud public school teacher. Our Perth Amboy Area Branch NAACP President, Reverend Donna Stewart, would like to invite our community members to do more than just talk about Black history, but stand up right now for a Black future and join us right here on February 21st at 5:30 p.m. as we rally to stop the Competitive Power Ventures Corporation and their political cronies from further polluting our environment. Please visit don'tgasmiddlesex.com to learn more about this disastrous project and what you can do to help stop it. We hope to see you on February 21st as we stand together against injustice. Thank you.
Any other comments this evening from the public?
John Vitale, Woodbridge. I just want to ask a couple of questions. Talk about power plant, third power plant in KSB. Where do they get the water from to create all the steam? Where does the water pump from? That's number one. Does anybody know?
I'm not sure, John.
It's not powered by water.
Mayor?
River.
Are you sure? Find out. I'm going back to apartments, 94. I know.
Would you share it with us?
Well, let me find out. It's embarrassment.
So it's a secret, you're not telling
No,
us?
it's not a secret.
Okay.
You want me to tell everybody?
I don't want to take up your
I don't want to tell in front of those people. It'd be sickening. And that is, made steam out of it. The steam is up in the air. And what's in that water? What's in the steam? So find out, and please, would you tell people yourself then? I want to ask about 94 units that I'm glad the mayor stopped it and not building a parking lot on the Rose Street, the James Street. Will that affect the Widow Maza project, Mayor, not building 55 units? Because they will not have a parking lot in that case. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, it'll significantly reduce that project. It'll basically cut it down to, I believe, 60 some odd units.
How many?
60 some odd. There'll be a first floor of retail space and parking, and then 2 floors of apartments above it. It was going to be 5 floors in total, and it was going to have a parking deck. The deck is out of question, and the floors is cut down from 5 to 3.
No, from 55 to what?
The number of units?
They're supposed to be 55 units, Vito Mazza, right?
No, it was more than 55 units.
Well, the last time I heard was 55 units. I don't know
No,
if
it
you
was 4
increased-
floors. It was more than 55.
Okay, okay, but again, let's go to the, over here on the letter J, the first ordinance. The ordinance authorizes the recording the revised subdivision of needed for format lot 35, 590. Is that ex-Hungarian club?
It is for the Acacia Center, and I believe it's the bar section that's going to be owned and operated by the Irish American Club of Woodbridge. So it's almost like a condominium within that unit.
Very good. I'm really good because they're there to stay. They're really important, just like Hungarians were. But I think that's a great thing to the Irish would stay over there. Again, on the certain things in Woodbridge over here, you know, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, we've become here for a long time. And it seems to me at every meeting, yourself and Kyle over there, Vice President, you spend so much time talking about the Woodbridge Community Center. Mr. Anderson is talking about so much time talking about the sports in Woodbridge schools. Amazon is hiring, things like that. You know, this is a big town. Now you're president or vice president. We need the representation. We got so many different projects, so many different issues. Some of those jobs should be done, people that are on the community center, people that are on the school board. That's supposed to be talking about, not yourself. Talk about what's essential to the regular citizens. We don't want to know about our community center, ice skating, and this and that. That's why you're here. You're not on school board. People, school board should be talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public this evening? Here are no other comment from the public. Can I get a motion that the public comment portion be closed?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, council members, we're going to go into our agendas, and I just want to share that the League of Municipalities, which is an organization that all towns belongs to, has a program called Champion of Health Awards. Our very own Ashley Ristiano, who is our public health educator, received the honorable mention. Ashley is on the e-board of the Mayor's Wellness Campaign. She's on the Health Task Force for Sustainable Health. She's always concerned about the quality of health and care for the most vulnerable population. She has currently a vision and a plan we're waiting for a mobile health unit that I know that we're working on. And she's also active in a lot of the mental health issues. She's a lifelong resident of Woodbridge Township, and to the point where her proposal for her wedding was on Main Street 2 Christmas ago. So she's a wonderful person that works with the town. Congratulations to Ashley. And is Phil still here? He's not here. So just extend our congratulations. The second thing that I wanted to mention, Director Nishki, I might be putting you on the spot here. I know there's a press conference tomorrow involving a collaboration with our police department, other towns in Middlesex County, where mental health providers are going to ride in the cars with our police officers.
That's correct.
Do you have the ability to explain that a little? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, the press conference is at 11 o'clock at St. Stephen's Church in Perth Amboy, and it's to announce a program where 3 municipalities in Middlesex County were selected, Woodbridge, Edison, and I believe Highland Park, to participate in a program where mental health professionals are going to ride with sworn officers and go on calls that involve mental health issues.
Very good, thank you. And then to get to my agenda, the Woodbridge Community Center, which happens to be my agenda. There are a number of activities going on there. Many of them are at very reduced cost or free. Pickleball for the schedule of February. Free senior movie night at the community center. You can check in with them. They have a list of all their movies. women's recreation volleyball on Monday nights, even spring kickball, which is a big thing now, 18 and over, and you pay per team there. In the spring coming up is bocce ball, and the Woodbridge Township Recreation Baseball Program is about to begin. The girls softball program is about to begin. And then also from our Division of Aging, they have a program called Thriving Later in Life, using group process to facilitate behavior change, helping members apply new skills to everyday life. It's at the Hickory Center in Fords. It's every Monday, March and April, and you can look on our website for more information on that. Council Vice President Anderson, you're up.
Thank you, Council President. My agenda's in order. However, I do have something that I actually have permission from the schools to announce, and the library as well. The Woodbridge Township schools will be mounting a display of student projects and art for Black History Month at the Woodbridge Main Library. They will be up all this month, so please stop by the Woodbridge Library to see the students' work. You can contact the library at 732-634-4450. And to your point regarding mental health, I wanted to announce that my office, my day job, we are working with every school district in Middlesex County on Thursday in a partnership with Rutgers University, and we're going to offer a professional development for all of the mental health teams throughout Middlesex County, and Woodbridge will have a team there, and training them on the multi-tiered support system that all mental health teams in school districts have. It helps school districts' mental health teams become underwhelmed. Many of them are overwhelmed right now as we have a crisis on our hands in mental health. And I would like to just congratulate all of the districts, Middlesex County and Rutgers University, for the partnership that they're doing to offer better services for our students and our faculty in Middlesex County. And lastly, I just want to announce that the Independent Club of Colonia will be hosting their Black History Month event, and that is the third Sunday, I believe? The 24th. 26th, thank you. All right, fourth Sunday, okay. February 26th here at the Acacia Center. Doors open at 2:30. It will be going from 3 o'clock to 5, I believe. There will be food served there. There's plenty of room there, but we're going to ask you to get there early. And you'll be there to see a number of honorees. We have Reverend Neva Lawson from C. Warren Baptist Church. We have Detective Mark Zeno from the Woodbridge Police Department, and we have our very own Councilwoman Debbie Meehan, who happens to be the councilwoman in the 5th Ward, which is where the Independent Club of Colonia there, and she's been a strong supporter of the Independent Club of Colonia. I want to thank the Independent Club for that. Also want to thank the Human Rights Commission. I see that there are 2 members of our Human Rights Commission here, Chairman Glenn Morgan and Don Green. Earlier today, we raised the Pan-African flag for the first time in Woodbridge Township history. And there's also a display for the Scouts and anyone that would like to see. There's a display for a lot of the Black history moments in America out in the hallway. So please, on your way out, stop out and take a look and learn something about Black history. Although it is a month, and I always remind everyone it's the shortest month of the year, but you know what? We celebrate Black history all year long because Black history is American history. So thank you very much for being here, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Councilman Bauer, you're up.
Thank you, Council President. My agenda is in order. I have one announcement for the Barron Arts Center. Woodbridge Treasures, preserving the past at Woodbridge Public Library. Our local history captured in documents, pictures, and objects from the archives of the Woodbridge Public Library. On view from March 3rd to the 24th at the Barron Arts Center, 582 Broadway Avenue in Woodbridge. For more information, telephone 732-634-0413. I'd like to thank the Boy Scouts for coming out tonight. This troop is actually chartered through my firehouse in Fords. Hopefully you learned something tonight. I'd like to thank the troop leaders for their volunteering their time to mentor these young men. Thanks for coming out. That's all I have tonight. Thank you, Council President.
Thanks. Councilman Small, you're up.
Mr. President, my agenda is in order. Thank you.
Man. Councilwoman De Jesus.
Thank you, Council President. My agenda is in order. Two things. I just want to congratulate our police department for being trailblazers in law enforcement and dealing with mental health. And I want to congratulate girls sports, Sydney, the good, I mispronounced her last name, but her sister went to high school with my daughter Brianna. She just scored 1,000 points last night in the county tournament, and Sydney goes to JFK High School. So congratulations, girl power. That is all that I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Spiller.
Thank you, Council President Ficarra. My agenda is in order. Just want to thank the Boy Scouts. We were trying to get you out of here for Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. I know you were waiting, but it was good seeing you. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilwoman Meehan.
Thank you, Council President. My agenda is in order tonight, and again, we're glad to see that you're here, and we hope you've learned something. And it's been a bit of a long meeting, but I hope you take something from it. That's all I have tonight.
Yeah, pilot.
Councilman Patel.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. My agenda is also in order, but I have one announcement. Iselin Post Office, which is located at 240 Middlesex, Essex Turnpike, Iselin has, we all know that they have limited parking, and usually many times customers face hard time finding a parking spot. Therefore, the township took an initiative about a few months ago to find some extra parkings in the close proximity of the post office. And we managed to find about 5 extra vehicle parking spaces on Middlesex Turnpike. These spaces are located on the north side curve of the Middlesex Turnpike, and they are located right after the entry and exit driveway of the post office. These parking spaces are designated by parking signs stating 30 minutes parking only. And these spaces are available now, and the post office customers can use them. I thank our police department, the township engineer, and roadway engineering for their hard work and dedication in serving the community. That's all for tonight. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman McCullough, last but not least, you're up.
Thank you, Council President. My agenda is in order. I just will make a couple of quick comments here. Number 3, the Chamber of Commerce. This Friday, February 10th, the Chamber will be hosting Mayor John McCormick's 2023 State of the Township at the Delta Hotel. If you do not have the opportunity to attend this exciting event, check out the schedule on TV 35 for the viewing of his presentation. Also on February 23rd, the Chamber of Commerce will be hosting a Pamper Chef event at the Chamber of Commerce office located at 91 Main Street from 4 to 6 p.m. This after-hour event will be a fundraiser, and a portion of the proceeds will go to the Woodbridge Domestic Violence Group. Number 7, which is Main Street and Route 9. As the road construction continues on Main Street near Wegmans, we ask that all residents please be mindful of the traffic pattern changes and follow police direction. We are working to improve the flow of traffic and appreciate your understanding and cooperation during this improvement process. Number 14, which is the Seawarren Public Library. The Seawarren Public Library is doing a Give a Card, Take a Card for Valentine's Day event now through the end of the week. Stop by and decorate a card and pin it up on the bulletin board to pass it forward. And don't forget, on Saturday is story time from 10 to 11, and it's all about the cupcake party. The last item I have is that the Top Chef competition at Bahama Breeze will be held on February 28th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. This is a fundraiser for the We Feed program for Woodbridge. Tickets can be purchased through the Bahama Breeze. If you contact Bahama Breeze, you can call 732-726-8951 or contact Jesse Farina at jfarina@bahamabreeze.com. I just want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day and enjoy the upcoming long President's Weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman, you're a sweetheart. Next.
Thank you, Mr. President. My agenda is in order.
Okay, moving into administration, Mr. Semaluka, you want to?
Thank you, Council President. I have a few items on my agenda. I have a 100% disabled veteran. I have a county tax appeal and an add-on. I'll have two proposals from H2M Architecture for proposal for alterations to Mount Carmel School building. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Director Brew, next. Thank you, Council President.
I have one item as a final change order on contract 2020-20. That's for the Amboy Avenue sanitary sewer extension. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Darden, anything?
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Council President.
Deputy Director Nishki.
Thank you, Council President. I have one traffic and parking ordinance proposal and one handicap parking space addition. Thank you.
Mr. Hager, you got any words over there?
Thank you very much for asking. Not this evening.
Thank you. Legal?
Nothing this evening, Council President.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you.